Hi everyone and welcome back. Today's video is part 2 of my interview with Italian attorney Nick Metta. And a quick reminder to like and subscribe if you're enjoying the channel. And also I've been getting a lot of questions lately about whether or not people need an attorney to become an Italian citizen by descent. And the answer to that question is no, an attorney is not required for this process. And most people will not need one to successfully navigate the Italian dual citizenship process. But as we heard Nick say in part 1, the rules and factors impacting eligibility are complex and are getting increasingly complicated. So as he recommended, you may strongly want to consider having your case reviewed by a professional before you come to a conclusion one way or the other as to whether or not you qualify. Services like ours at Italian Dual Citizenship Assistance can help you determine your eligibility and your best path forward. And we'll refer you on to a great attorney like Nick if we feel like your case requires one. In episode 1, Nick encouraged us to keep moving forward and be ready to apply when the time is right. In today's episode, he'll tell us more about the options he sees ahead, and he'll tell us how he thinks the law is likely to change before conversion. And perhaps most importantly, he'll tell us how the decree might actually turn out to be a gift for many of us, even those with cases that go back to a great-grandparent or beyond. So let's check it out. And Nick, thank you so much for joining us. I know you're a busy guy and there's a lot swirling around with this decree, so thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tony. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you for having me.
You've had an optimistic message about this decree in that you mentioned that it could turn out to be a gift like the 1948 cases turned out to be. Largely, I think your point is that the 1948 court process turned out to be a much quicker and easier process for many people than the process of trying in vain for years to get an appointment with the consulates. Would you mind speaking to that?
Yeah, definitely. So we have seen that in the past years, there has been a surge of applications for citizenship, and it has been pretty difficult, if in certain cases impossible, to get an appointment at the consulate. So there are people who have been waiting 2-3 years, and people who don't even have a date. They are on a waiting list to apply through the consulate. So if you are a 1948 case, you would have to file the application for recognition through the court, and you can file that without going to Italy. You sign a court proxy to an attorney, you can sign in your home country, validate that proxy internationally, ship it to your lawyer, and your lawyer can file a case in court. And then within pretty much a year, in our experience, you get a judgment. Sometimes it may take a little bit more, but usually a year, sometimes even under a year, you get a final judgment of recognition of Italian citizenship. And it is, at that point, much easier. So
you think an option might exist that's going to turn out to be similar here, where there are avenues in which people can legally challenge this decree and the subsequent law in a court case that would be potentially much easier than applying through a consulate or a comune, or in the future instance that they've outlined of the creation of a centralized office in Italy to handle applications starting potentially in 2026. It seems like it could be challenging to get an appointment. They've given themselves 4 years to process applications. So the legal route could be a lot faster. You think something like that is going to turn out to be possible for people impacted by this decree and subsequent law?
I believe that one of these two things is going to happen. One is the majority of the representatives in the Senate and the House of Representatives in Italy is going to approve the decree the way it is and convert it into law, which is unlikely, in my opinion. And in that case, I see sufficient legal ground to file a lawsuit similarly to the 1948 case. And so you do what you would have done through the consulate and the comune, you do it through the court, like people are doing it in the 1948 case. Obviously, there's not going to be any precedent, so it's going to be less certain as an outcome compared to the 1948, which right now is pretty well settled in favor of the applicants, I would say. But I feel that there is significant strong legal ground if the law decree is converted as it is into law. The other scenario, which I think is more likely, they're going to think a little bit harder about it, and they're going to have to wait between facing this massive influx of lawsuits, like in the 1948 cases, or they might amend the wording of the law before converting it. And in other areas of the law in Italy, when similar radical changes have happened, the parliament might add a transitory rule at the end of the law. And we have seen this happen once again many times in many situations. So the transitory rules say these are the new rules. However, for the people who were born under the previous legislation before today, they have 1 year to complete their application. And if they don't do it, they're done. They lose their opportunity. I'm saying 1 year because that's what has happened in the past. That's what sounds reasonable, although for people who haven't started the process might be challenging because some documents might take more than 1 year to be received. However, for people who are in the middle of the process, that might be an option. The problem here is even more people are going to rush and apply, and that might create a worse problem compared to of what already they are complaining about, which is the influx of applications and the overwhelming challenges that the comune and the consulate offices are facing because of this, and the courts too. So they will have to decide, what do we want to do? Do we want to push everyone to file quickly now within a certain amount of time, or let's move forward and fight it in court to the end? We don't have the crystal ball, unfortunately. But if I had to gamble, depending on how hard you want this, you might want to continue retrieving documents, and as soon as we know what the rules are and the uncertainty settles and dissipates, you go ahead either through the standard channels or through the court.
That's a great point. I've been getting that message from a number of attorneys that I've spoken to. The general consensus is let's all keep moving forward, not spending a fortune if we can avoid it, and gathering documents and the elements that go with that. Putting together the application packet doesn't have to cost a fortune. And then be ready, because we don't know how things are going to settle out. We're going to know a lot more in a couple of months, and then there's probably going to be some legal battling, maybe a trip to the constitutional courts, and who knows how this thing is going to settle out, but at least you'll be ready and positioned to jump in when the timing is right. You sound like you agree with that idea.
100%. Yes. Yes. Essentially, people have been stripped of their right without an option to exercise it.
There's classes being created here. People who are born in Italy are of a different class than those born outside of Italy.
I feel that there are going to be options. At this point, I think that the best thing that someone can do is move forward with collecting the paperwork. I think that time is going to be of the essence.